Hello guys, I'm André Miceli and this is Esses. I'm with Travis Hunter. He's the director of MIT Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program. Travis, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Travis, I'd like to start from the beginning. I'd like to hear your background and your relationship with MIT.
Sure. So I am coming up on my 7th year with MIT, which has been a really unbelievable experience. There's just so much going on. You learn so much every day. It's really a wonderful place to be. Before MIT, my background started off in real estate development. So my family's in that business, and so I got a bit of experience in construction and land development. Afterwards, I moved into the startup world. So I tried to start my own company that was focused on batteries at the time. And then after that, I ended up helping start an incubator for startup companies in the Boston area. It's called the Quincy Center for Innovation, and we had startups from all different kind of industries, including robotics. That was kind of a sweet spot for us. And we had about 60 companies at a time. And while I was there, I ended up meeting with a group of researchers that were coming out of Harvard that were with the Porter group, or Porter Research Group, and they were focused on clusters. And one of the things that they thought was interesting is that a lot of robotics companies were moving out of Boston and Cambridge into the South Shore of Massachusetts, and looking at kind of different reasons for their co-location. And so afterwards, I ended up hearing about REAP, the Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program. It was pretty early on. That was in the first few years of its founding. So I joined as the third person to lead the program, which was about 2016.
Cool. And what is exactly your role as
Sure.
the director of the program?
Yep. So I lead our faculty team that includes 7 faculty members as well as a staff team. We have 3 cohorts currently in the program. We constitute a cohort as a group of stakeholders from multiple regions around the world. And so we have 3 different programs that run concurrently. One of them is just focused on Mexico, and then the other 2 are global cohorts, and they have teams from all around the world, including Rio.
Yeah, Rio is one of the regions that is MIT REAP is working on, and how's it been so far?
Fantastic. It's a really interesting cohort because it's diverse. We have teams from Los Angeles and Northern Ireland, et cetera, and so you're able to see how each one of these regions is approaching what we call their innovation-driven entrepreneurial ecosystem, and thinking through some of the major challenges for people to start and scale technology-based companies in that region. There's many different ways to commercialize innovation, as we've heard from colleagues at MIT, including Lars Froland. But one of the key ways that we do focus on is through entrepreneurship and starting a new commercial venture. And so in terms of our REAP team from Rio, they're really focused on the energy sector, which I think makes a lot of sense. It builds off of what we would call their comparative advantage. As a region, that is one of the many assets that you have as a region, right? There are unique history and talents and kind of things that you can capitalize on in a particular region rather than trying to kind of start a new industry from scratch. And so our team from Rio is, very purposefully focused on an industry that they're already really good at and building on that.
So you guys have a model with a 5-point star. I'd like you to explain this model and how does it provides and supports the innovation ecosystem.
Sure. So one of the key things that we have developed, I guess, as an insight through REAP is that there's really no one in charge of entrepreneurship, right? A lot of times you'll see these government programs that are really focused on helping SMEs, right? In the United States, the main organization that is supporting new business growth is called the Small Business Development Organization, right? So they're really focused on helping small businesses rather than kind of scalable types of companies. And so really what we're trying to figure out is how do you engage all the right stakeholders to make an ecosystem work well? And so taking that kind of concept that no one's really in charge of entrepreneurship, who needs to be at the table to help support entrepreneurs? And so from our perspective, it needs to include the government, the corporations that are really helping through their joint ventures or supporting research activities in the region, universities, which is a really core and very stable organization in any ecosystem, the entrepreneurs, and then the venture capitalists. And so that's kind of that 5-point system that we described. And no single organization or stakeholder has, complete authority over, what happens in that ecosystem, but each one of them can actually, play a major role in helping commercialize new innovation.
And which cohort do you think is a good benchmark for us to understand what we can expect after REAP works on a region?
Yeah. So the way we operate is we have a team or a working group that represents each one of those 5 stakeholders applied to the program. They're typically folks that have budgetary and strategic decision-making authority for their organization, so that when it comes time to kind of bear resources to create a new program or change policy, they're able to as a group. And so the way we lead them through the program is there's a series of workshops, there's 4 over 2 years, and we start to kind of align their understandings of their ecosystem through the first workshop, which is focused on our frameworks. Then that team, once their kind of understanding and viewpoints are somewhat aligned, then they start to move into strategy, and they develop a strategy focused on kind of the key bottlenecks or challenge areas for the region for people to start companies. And they do that in a very kind of data-driven way. So they analyze the region kind of from economic development data, but they also get out and talk to real-world entrepreneurs and venture capitalists and try to kind of compare the qualitative and quantitative understanding of how that region operates. And that helps them kind of understand which are the most urgent challenges to solve. And then they develop a strategy and have to actually start to implement that strategy during the 2-year program. And so each region is going to do something completely different. That's the kind of whole concept too, is that the intervention that team comes up with and ultimately creates, in our language we call it their must-win battle, is really kind of tailor-made to the challenges and the kind of cultural and situational context of that region. And so regions, have created many different initiatives, anywhere from new tech transfer office for all the universities in the country, to sets of hackathons and conferences to help build a community that didn't previously exist, to creating new venture funds. And so there's a real wide variety of different kind of needs, and so each region is going to focus on something very different. I know our team from Rio, which is very exciting, has a number of different initiatives that they would like to start, and so they'll get to that point of both unveiling those initiatives and launching them probably next year when they get to that 3rd quarter of the way through the program.
And what do you think are going to be the biggest challenges here in Rio?
I think one of the biggest challenges for every team that goes through REAP is how do they want to use that time, that initiative, right? So they have a 2-year period working with MIT faculty to create and launch these initiatives. But the long tail of those initiatives is really what matters in terms of impacting that ecosystem. And so you can view it as a very kind of short-term project-oriented task force that creates something and then they step back. Other teams will actually create more continuity through what we would call a backbone organization, where each one of those stakeholder voices is represented, long term, and making sure that that the initiatives that they started are actually impactful. And so that is one of the biggest challenges, really, is kind of that long-term planning beyond the program.
Yeah. And politics is being a challenge for us right now, and we are in the middle now at the end of a huge and a problematic election, and now at least we are expecting things to be better, in the sense of that the society will not be fighting anymore. Do you think, in what sense do you think that this kind of challenge can be a problem or can impact negatively an initiative like that?
Yeah, I think changes in especially local government definitely can impact which initiatives get backed and supported and which ones don't. I think one of the kind of key takeaways that we've received through working with so many different regions around the world, to date, I think we've worked with over 80 different parts of the world, is that actually engaging people at different levels of government, so civil servants, all the way up to people that are politically, elected, but also engaging people from different parties, really ensuring that they all kind of understand what are the key drivers of any innovation ecosystem is really, really key. And so when there is a change in government, typically that's what all of our teams will do, is they try to engage both the kind of civil servant level person, but also the opposition if there is a transition.
Yes, because there is no other way. Entrepreneurship, the whole system will have to deal with these transitions.
Exactly.
Because for sure there will be transitions everywhere, every time, and for sure the co-hosts that you guys have to deal around the world deal with it, thousands of times, and for sure you have faced these challenges before, and then you guys have kind of a framework to deal with it.
Yeah, it's definitely like one of the most sensitive topics for sure.
Yeah,
and it's difficult to navigate. But there are ways to do it, and there's ways to do it successfully, so that your initiatives are supported by multiple different groups within the government.
Yeah, and how about funding? Brazil is not exactly a country where it's easy to get funding for projects, especially when we have moments with high return on investments, with more predictable return on your investments. How do you get funds for this kind of initiatives? How easy is to negotiate with private equities or seeding capital? How do you do with this point of the star?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of different flavors of money, right, that's available in any particular region. But how it gets to an entrepreneur in supporting an investment in that entrepreneur's initiative in starting that company, there's a lot of different ways, right? That we have a spectrum from all the way to friends and family, all the way to much larger rounds of capital raises. Really strong ecosystems typically will have that full spectrum, so that people that are earlier on in the investment stages are able to get back their capital and then reinvest in other companies. And so a lot of times when you see sections of that spectrum missing, you will see companies get to an inflection point where they need to either decide to stay in that region and expand operations and raise money elsewhere, and or their investors may ask them to move the company to another location. And so that is a super critical area, and we want to make sure that there is a very full spectrum availability of money, right? But that's not something that is just dictated. It's something that has to be developed through, especially networks. I think networks is one of the most important ways to do that, where you start to see investors from maybe those missing spectrums start to engage with the network in Rio, as an example, and really start to understand, there are quality companies being developed in this region, and then you start to see that network develop over time.
Yeah. So, in Rio will host a REAP workshop in January. So it was kind of a competition around the cohort.
Sure.
What do you guys see in the city for hosting the worldwide REAP workshop?
We're super excited for it. So in any cohort, one of our 4 workshops is hosted internationally. And so the teams that are in the cohort can bid to host. And so Rio did win out against some of the other teams. And there's a really particular reason for it. This is, a really dynamic ecosystem. It's also at a point where there's concerted effort and focus on supporting entrepreneurship and innovation here. And so because it has those dynamic aspects, we wanted to make sure that we could use it as an example for other regions to learn from. And so we're going to be bringing the whole gang from MIT, we're going to be bringing all the other teams from all around the world here to Rio to really kind of understand what is making this ecosystem so special.
Who's going to be here? Can you say some names?
Sure. So in terms of our faculty members,
yes.
We're going to have Professor Scott Stern. So he's a world-leading economist focused on innovation ecosystems. We're going to have Professor Fiona Murray, who's our Associate Dean for Innovation at MIT.
Cool.
We're going to have Sherry Lesberg, who is both a venture capitalist and a senior lecturer at MIT, focusing on the money aspect of the ecosystem. We'll have Michael Cusimano, who's our Deputy Dean from MIT Sloan. And we'll have Dr. Phil Budden, who is an ex-diplomat and focuses on a lot of that inter-stakeholder relationships on any one of our teams. So we're going to be bringing that whole crew down here to
a great team.
Yeah, really
cool.
Excited for it.
Very cool. So thank you so much, Travis. We are very excited for January, and good luck with your initiatives, and good luck with the MIT REAP.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Guys, this was Esses. Stay with us for more at MIT Technology Review Brazil.